Heather Stewart stated that their data proves that the cost of pursuing LEED adds less than 1% to the total project cost while accounting for significant water and energy savings. And the president of the University of North Texas reported that their LEED certified football stadium paid for itself within 8 years. In 2011, their 31,800 seat football stadium was the first certified sports arena in the world. And they stated, their president, Lane Rawlings, stated that by building in this manner, the sustainable features of the building pay for themselves through their efficiencies within 8 years. People ask sometimes, what's the actual point or purpose of certifying? They'll maybe use the rating system to, set as their goals, but they don't actually certify. And so the simplest way to answer that is that third-party verification through LEED helps to guarantee that the building design is achieving the goals the project team put into place. Same thing if it's an existing building. You can build a building however, with the best products and however you design it to be really efficient. But if the individuals that are occupying that building every day don't know how to use the building the best or aren't familiar with, how to use those products, let's say they leave the lights on all day, or they open windows and have the air conditioning blasting, or they do different things like that, they're not composting or recycling like they're supposed to. If they're not using the basic building how it was intended, you're not going to see those return on your investment. So it's good to track and certify to be able to actually ensure that it is achieving the goals that you set in place. So an integrated design process, which I know another presenter is going to get into a bit more detail, but it really is the most important aspect of a LEED project. And by having all the team members together at the beginning allows the team to properly plan for the sustainability features and designs from the very beginning. And involving a LEED accredited professional is someone that can help the project team achieve their goals by using the rating system. There's over 200,000 worldwide, and we have a lot of them living here locally. Under the banner of sustainability, instead of just reducing environmental damage, we also want to make sure we give back to the planet. With LEED Zero and LEED Positive, our vision of regenerative buildings, we are pushing the market to implement a new level of performance in green buildings. With the ARC technology platform that powers LEED, all buildings can track, measure, and analyze the score with real-world performance data. So certified projects can now earn LEED Zero certification in any of the performance categories, which are carbon, energy, waste, and water. And the future for USGBC is LEED Positive. So our president and CEO has set an aspirational goal for USGBC that we will require all LEED new construction projects to achieve LEED Positive starting in 2025, and all existing buildings to be LEED Positive by 2050. We also have V4.1 right now. We rolled out V4 version 4 about 5 years ago, and then we rolled out LEED version 4.1 more recently. And this really is, we're wanting to go bigger. So LEED V4.1 is for all. It's more inclusive. It allows projects to earn LEED points through performance building monitoring via the ARC performance platform. We want it to be stronger by continuing to drive performance. Performance outcomes are fully integrated into V4.1, so you can measure performance on an ongoing basis. We want to be bolder. Our lessons learned from those in the market using LEED V4 and over the last 25 years have led us to take a deeper look at existing buildings, residential projects, and cities to develop unique solutions that address unique markets. So V4.1 will deliver new methodologies for measuring building performance by working with and supporting projects to track energy, water, waste, transportation, and indoor air quality. A simple data-driven path to LEED certification for existing buildings. V4.1 is making it accessible to more projects than any other version of the rating system. We also have updated reference standards and performance requirements to ensure that LEED remains a global leader in green building. And project teams can also substitute LEED V4.1 credits on LEED V4 projects. And this has been really great feedback, or we've been getting really great feedback. Some project teams were using V4 and were having challenges meeting the requirements to get their building certified. And then once we rolled out the V4.1, they were able to substitute some of those credits, and where they were struggling to even get certified before, now they're reaching gold and platinum status. So when we put out a new version of the rating system, sometimes those credits don't fully meet the intent of what they were created for. So that's why we have this continuous improvement process for LEED. So we make sure that those credits are really meeting the demands and the needs of our community. So our members have shaped our organization into what it is today. They are driving the entire green building community to go further, faster than ever before. And we're made up of companies large and small, both local and multinational. So if you're not a local member of your local community, or if your organization isn't already a member of USGBC, we would love to have your support. USGBC membership includes reduced rates for LEED registration and certification, also for education events and many, many other benefits, as well as marketing opportunities. So we welcome your support to achieve our vision, which is that of a green building community can help change our world for the better. And when you join USGBC, you signal your support for the growing green building movement, as well as programs and initiatives that advance our global mission. So what are the next steps to committing to LEED and integrating it in your current and future building portfolio? Through the last year, so many people are forced, like I mentioned, to leave their offices and work remotely. They've gotten used to these healthy spaces. So again, you want to make sure that your existing building is really going to meet the needs of the occupants that are coming back or that are already there and moving on in the future. This is where LEED can really come in and help with re-entry, and will create a space where people want to go to work each day. This is where owners and facility managers will need to focus on their existing buildings to make sure they're operating and performing at their highest ability. So here is, a little more about the operations and maintenance. It's a stronger environmental performance leads to economic prosperity and a better quality of life and improved human health and well-being for all. So LEED V4.1 for O&M, which is operations and maintenance, supports this goal by tracking performance in energy, water, waste, transportation, indoor air quality, toxin-free environment, and occupant satisfaction. So with V4.1 O&M, an initial certification can be awarded to projects based on the implementation of sustainable operation strategies and performance score achievement in the LEED Online for the following areas. So some of the benefits, I think we've covered some of them, but they really are demonstrating your building's commitment to sustainability and wanting to have a healthy space for your occupants. It's educating the occupants and visitors on how to use the products in the building and the materials in the building properly so you can really achieve your sustainability goals. It's providing shared accessibility and continuity of data across the teams over time, so you're measuring and tracking. And it's identifying policies that will reduce consumption and operating costs. A way to track all of your building's operations is through the ARC platform. It's free for all buildings to use. So any building can go into ARC and start entering their data now. And that way they can start to get a score to see where their building really does track. So you can register your projects by, here's a little view you can see here of the ARC platform. And it helps you, lead a closer look towards your building, and then also can help you achieve LEED certification if that's your ultimate goal. It allows for any project, whether a single building, community, or even an entire city, to enter the platform, measure improvements, and benchmark against itself and projects around it. So you can use ARC to make incremental sustainability improvements to your projects and eventually achieve LEED certification. ARC works by calculating a performance score out of 100 based on global building data and action-oriented strategies across 5 categories, which is energy, water, waste, transportation, and human experience. And project owners can leverage the score to monitor and make improvements and work towards certification of their buildings. So thank you so much. That's it for me right now.
Sound very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate the quick introduction. I know it's a lot of material and we wanted to cover in 10 minutes just as an introduction. So as we discuss the different aspects of the topic that pertains to project managers and special construction managers, and they'll hopefully learn more as they go through the other presentations as well, and then we'll come back to you for more questions and during the discussion panel. Thank you, Lana.
That sounds great.
Patrick, can you share your screen?
Let me see if we can get there.
Okay.
Trying to get back to that.
So if you don't see it, you gotta click on that Zoom.
Do you have it?
No, at the bottom it says where the Zoom meeting icon is. Maybe if you click on that, you'll get it back.
I had share screen, but I'm not finding.
Okay. did you want us to wait a little bit longer for you to find it, or go to Julie and then come back to you?
Well, hang on here a second. I think I can get it.
Okay.
While we're waiting, I'll just mention that
Yeah.
Lana put a link to that ARC program in the chat.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, I'm here.
Thanks, Julie.
Mhm. Okay, as Patrick is getting ready, I'm going to give you a little bit of
I think
information. Okay, now we can see your
You
screen.
got it?
That's
Okay, good.
Okay. So Pat has over 50 years of experience working in the construction, engineering, and architectural industry. And he is also a past chairman of the U.S. Green Building Association Detroit Regional Chapter. So he is part of the Wayne State University, and he's been going through architectural school in University of Detroit Mercy. And it is an honor to have Patrick as part of our panel, as he is a fellow of the Engineering Society of Detroit, and he brings a lot of experience and knowledge surrounding the Go Green building, as he worked for Ford Motor Company Go Green program. So Patrick, without further ado, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you. Well, I recently wrote an article for the USGBC, and it talked about why I'm involved in green buildings, why I was involved in that, how I got involved. And I'd like to kind of take you along that journey as part of my presentation, and also give you the benefits of green buildings. So that's where we're going with this. This is something that we've seen here. My history on efficient buildings dates back to the 60s. So through the 60s to the 90s, our main drivers were cost. That means basically efficiency, energy reduction, and environmental. We were interested in clean air and water. At that time, we knew nothing about greenhouse gases or CO2. So we're working forward. The building you see in the background is a complex that I did in San Lando, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. It was a 7, a 5, and a 1-story building. Incorporated a lot of green things, even though it was done in 1980. For instance, we had a highly efficient water source heat pump, which let us have individual control for individual offices. We also were able to move energy from one side of the building to the other in the situation where one side might need heat and the other side needs cooling. You can do that without creating it on one side and disposing of the heat on the other. Big generator there. Another really significant thing on there was the landscaping that went in, the big green areas, and the stormwater system, which took all of the water there, ran it into a detention pond, which all of the water was then percolated into the ground and recharged the groundwater. So we're happy to see how that went. Continuing with some other buildings at that time, I mean, what did we do? We looked for better insulation, we looked for equipment efficiency, heat recovery in a lot of cases. We tried to minimize infiltration. Once in a while, we'd be dealing with passive solar. We tried to incorporate that, and occasionally maybe even a solar hot water heater. And of course, we were looking for water conservation. The building you see in the background here is the Bosch facility in Farmington Hills, Michigan. It was an office and a test facility. And the pond you see out front was especially interesting. Not only was it decorative, but it also served as the stormwater detention facility, and there was a fountain in the middle of it. But we took that water and we used it to cool the test equipment and the HVAC system of the building. Then, of course, we used that water to irrigate the landscaping around. So we made multiple use out of that. So then in 2001, something happened. Ford was involved in green design. The Ford Rouge plant that you see in the background had many, many green aspects of it. One of which everybody knows is the Ford Rouge plant had the world's largest green roof. So that was quite a thing. So Ford got together and they suggested with all of their architects that they attend something called a USGBC Summit Conference in Tucson, Arizona. This was the precursor to Greenbuild. And we went there. What happened? This shows what Greenbuild looks like today. But at the time, we had about 350 people there. We learned about green buildings. We learned about USGBC. We were kind of amazed at some of the things we do. And we were surprised that as many as 350 to 400 people attended the event. Now, if you know what Greenbuild is today, you see how that has grown since then. We came back and we decided to establish a chapter in Detroit to encourage green building design and establish green education. So that's what we were going with that. Now, I took that information based on the other things I've been doing with energy and efficiency in buildings. This was really a giant step forward in my activities moving forward. Why? Because buildings have a very significant environmental impact. They use 65% of the electricity, 36% of the total energy use, and 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. 30% of the waste output comes, 12% of the water use, and 30% of the raw materials. You know, this is all in buildings. And what you see in the background is the Renaissance Center that I had some minor involvement with when it was being built. And then, of course, the river walk along the way, which I had designed some of the roadway around that area. So green design is significant positive impact, you know, of the design and construction practices that significantly reduce the negative impact of buildings on the environment and the occupants. Now, the building you see in the background is one that not only designed, but I occupied. That was a house of mine. And it was done really before LEED got into a full-blown effect. This was done in about 2000, but I incorporated many of the green movements in there anyway. The house was highly energy efficient with an energy efficient shell, constructed of renewable materials, and it had a design facing west because that's where a water and a canal and boats were. So I wanted to get a lot of glass there, but we know that west is a big energy that you'll get from sun coming in. So I positioned the building to take advantage of some trees close by, and the trees shaded it in the summer, but they allowed light to come in the winter. The site design had extensive landscaping and a fish pond, and we retained water on site and used it to recharge the groundwater. In addition to that, we used canal water for any irrigation and supplying water to the fish pond. So we're incorporating all of that in there, even though that was not necessarily, I was not necessarily involved in LEED at the time. Now, the principles of sustainable construction, the goal is to create and operate a healthy built environment based on resources, efficiency, and ecological design. Principles, many of these are what you heard Lana talk about: reduce resource consumption, reuse resources, use recyclable materials if you can, eliminate toxics, apply life cycle costing, not just the first cost, and focus on quality because it lasts longer. And of course, we're protecting nature. The building you see in the background here is a engine plant that I was responsible for that was done for Chrysler at the time, and was in Trenton, Michigan, about 900,000 square feet of building that included many green items, including efficient heating and cooling and lighting. Natural light was brought into not only the offices, but the plant, you know, high efficiency building shell. And there was some area there that was that needed to be restored because there was some contamination on the existing site, which was adjacent to another plant. This building got LEED Gold certification and was one of the first industrial buildings in the country to do so. When it opened, we had the governor of the state of Michigan and the chief executive of Wayne County as part of the opening ceremonies of that. Now, Green buildings are buildings that are efficient, environmentally sensitive, and cost effective. They're highly conscious of land use and site development, efficient water, wastewater, efficient energy systems, conservation, and effective use of materials, and creating a healthy place for occupants to live and work. Same building there, Chrysler in the background. So this is where USGBC came in mind. We encourage green buildings, encourage green products. We provide education and collaboration. And of course, the rating system that Lana described helps us get there and define what is a green building. Focused on site planning, stormwater, water, wastewater, energy efficiency, conservation of materials, and indoor air quality. We're using that moving forward to do buildings. So the benefits are obvious here when you look at that with green buildings. You got energy reduction, waste reduction, water use reduction, reduced operating costs. There's a bottom line that helps you get costs down. Certainly CO2 reduction. We're all interested in reducing greenhouse gases and improving indoor air quality. That gives us a better living environment. Building you see here, or the project here in the background, is one of the Go Green projects for Ford Motor Company, which I was the manager of. And this happens to be an outdoor parking lot and lighting, which was upgraded to LED, saving a lot of energy. Matter of fact, I had one of my dealerships came to me and told me that the energy company came to them and they were rechecking their meters after they had redid their lighting because they thought there was something wrong with them because the energy was reduced by so much. It's a great opportunity. So the benefits of green buildings, we have environmental, that's to reduce the impact of natural resources, certainly reducing pollution. Economic, you reduce cost. And here you're reducing certainly operating costs, and sometimes you can even reduce first costs. As Lana indicated, it doesn't always have to cost you more. But definitely the idea is improving the bottom line. And the social benefits, enhancing the occupant comfort and the health, and maintaining minimizing the strain on local infrastructures. So we're typically improving the quality of life. This is what we call the triple bottom line. You're working on all three of them. Now, green building benefits, you know, people spend 90% of their time in buildings. HVAC is 43% of U.S. energy. Buildings account for 12% of waste generation. Now, LEED projects have been diverting, 80 million tons a year from landfills, or even more today as more buildings go in that direction. And green buildings do have a greater building value to their owners because they're worth more. People see that, and they're more efficient. As I see it, a majority of buildings going forward are likely to be green buildings, and I think they need to be. The building you see in the background here is a project 8-story high office building that I did in Tampa, Florida. This one was done before LEED came into effect, had a number of interesting items, efficient systems, the same water-based heat pump system that I mentioned earlier in the other project, but had one very interesting thing. It was a tight site. We didn't have room for a detention pond. We created a very, very unusual subsurface detention pond built out of rock and filter fabric, which was underneath the parking lots. It's a very unique design. So where are we going? Better buildings, we think that's our legacy. That's what we're trying to do. Better buildings, more efficient buildings. That's where we want to go to. And protecting the environment is also our legacy. We also want to see sunsets like this for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren. We're protecting it for future generations. And here's a piece of my future generations here with my wife, my daughter, and 3 grandsons. So we want the world to be good for them moving forward. We used to say, do this because it's the right thing to do. That's still true, absolutely. But I've come to feel that right now it's really the only thing to do. So it's the right thing to do, and it's the only thing to do. We need to do this going forward. Green buildings are the way to go. And with that,
Excellent.
I say thank you for all
very
of
much.
your effort here, and thank you for listening.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It was great presentation, and thanks for that personal touch there. It was very nice to see your long and great experience working on green buildings and the green technologies. The next portion is going to be by Julie. Julie Lyons is a sustainable manager for City of Royal Oak. Julie, can you share your screen while I'll introduce you? And you're on mute if you can
Sure,
unmute yourself.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Great. So Julie Lyons Bricker is the Energy and Sustainability Manager for the City of Royal Oak, Michigan. And in her position, she helps with the energy issues and championed the 2020 LEED for City certification. She will be discussing her perspective from an owner perspective and the work that she's been doing for 15 years on nonprofit and public sector. And her expertise is part of the Building Council Detroit chapter, and she has been board member and a treasurer at the Heartland Regional Representative. And also she's a liaison for the community outreach and work groups. The interesting part is she's a Michigan Tech University graduate, and she is a PMP. So that's great to have a PMP discuss this topic. And she has a LEED AP of operation and maintenance. Without further ado, here's Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Amari, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about LEED and project management and the City of Royal Oak. So let's see, I will my next slide. So we're going to cover today in my presentation sustainability and LEED for cities, which is a little bit of a departure from the LEED products that you've been hearing about, which are for buildings. The LEED product I'm going to talk about is LEED for cities and communities, which is a product that is more comprehensive for a bigger picture of sustainability. So USGBC's tagline is a new way, green, inclusive, and smart cities. So on my agenda, I'm going to give a little background about Royal Oak and some of the sustainability and initiatives we have, our LEED for Cities process, the additional sustainability efforts that the LEED for Cities helped us move forward on. And then I wanted to show some of our actual greenhouse gas inventory results and talk a little bit about some opportunities and potential sustainability work going forward. So here is a bit of background about the City of Royal Oak. Our population is about 60,000 people, and our land mass is about 12 square miles. So you can see in the right-hand map that our city is also shaped like a very cute dog. You can always find it on the map if you know that you're looking for a dog. In general, our demographics are listed here. Median income is about 74,000. Median value of owner-occupied unit is about 192,000. The bulk of our residents fall in the age group of 25 to 54, and the bulk of our residents also fall under the Caucasian in racial breakdown. So that's just a little bit about the city to give some context for the project that we worked on through LEED. Existing initiatives that we have in place, we touch on many of the pieces of sustainability, not just energy in buildings. So for carbon reduction, again, we've worked on the greenhouse gas emission inventory. In energy, we have an approved plan, and I track all of our municipal buildings, utility of gas and electric, to understand how these buildings are working. For waste, we've had a single stream recycling program for years, which works very well for our residents. In water, we have 8 municipal rain gardens and bioswale installations, including the latest large unit, which also has a detention pond, like Patrick mentioned at one of his properties, of 680,000 gallons of holding volume. About air quality, one of the things that we've participated in for a very long time, as you can see, is the Tree City USA. We were the first or second city in Michigan to start with the Tree City USA. For transportation, we have been installing dedicated bike lanes over the past couple of years, and sharrows and traffic calming islands to meet some of the goals of our non-motorized plan, which is embedded within our master plan. Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, and then the last piece of initiatives is about public policy. And we think this is really important also because it helps drive decision making in the future. It drives economic benefits. And so you can see some of the ordinances we have in place include human rights, solar and wind installation, tree replacements, permeable surfaces, etc. Our current mayor has been very forward thinking about sustainability and climate actions for the last half dozen years or so, and he has signed on to a number of climate agreements for global issues and also national sign-ons. We are a member of the U.S. Green Building Council, Michigan Green Communities, the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, and ICLEI. So that's what we have going on and had going on prior to our LEED for Cities work. So now we'll get talking about LEED for Cities. In May of 2019, we had an opportunity to apply for a USGBC Bank of America combination grant to work for the LEED for Cities version 4.1 certification. So it turned out that our submission earned one of the 15 spots. So we joined 14 other cities across the country, moving forward to actually earn that certification. And so just a little bit of background about the LEED for Cities and Communities. This helps local leaders benchmark performance against national and global standards. It helps demonstrate a commitment of sustainability, in a very comprehensive way, also including resilience and social equity. It helps develop a culture of data-driven decision-making, and transparency, and leadership, and is meant to improve the standard of living and quality of life in these cities and communities. So some of the strategies organized in the LEED for Cities are the natural systems and ecology, transportation and land use, water efficiency, materials and resources, and quality of life. So performance in these categories are tracked in 2 ways. One is that there are prerequisites in a few of these, and then all 5 have a certain number of credits that a city or a community can earn. So one of the things I would like to say, as a PMP and working on major projects, this process was daunting in many ways, namely because of the prerequisites and the amount of data required. But then again, it was also extremely enlightening because of those same things, because of the prerequisites and the amount of data required. So we were thrilled to be a part of that grant and that cohort working with other communities. And we felt, really enlightened is the word that we have once we figured out about the gaps in our sustainability work and in the initiatives that we had done in the past. And we recognized that they were really piecemealed and not set up in a comprehensive way. So that was another benefit of being part of this LEED for Cities cohort. So one of what I'd like to talk to you now about is some of those gaps and opportunities. So one of the things we learned is our waste stream tracking for commercial and multifamily sectors is non-existent. We have no idea how much waste is going to the municipal landfills from those two sectors. So it's a piece that we need to work on. Again, another opportunity would be policies for greener buildings, thinking about building standards, mandating building performance. Some other larger cities have already done this, and it's something that we will probably look into. We also recognize that our current boards and commissions don't necessarily reflect the demographic makeup of our community, and that is something we would like to change. We would like to hear a diverse collection of voices, so that the city really feels like it belongs to everyone. The next to the last thing on this list, it was a really interesting piece, and that was about hazard mitigation, mainly about a failure with the utility infrastructure. If we ran into a disaster where the electricity perhaps was turned off for days, how would we manage that? And it turned out there were some pieces in place, but many were not in place. We had not considered them. But beyond our own small area and thinking about hazard mitigation, we started thinking about who are our partners, who are organizations that we really need to be in touch with and make sure that they are on board with what we have in place and that they recognize their own gaps. And we realized a big potential partner was our local Beaumont hospital. They have a large Royal Oak campus. And so we were able to talk with them and build a relationship with them. And then also the South Oakland County Water Authority, just mentioning, if we had a disaster, how would we all work together? How would we manage these pieces? And we have now built a relationship and have a commitment to talk about these things at least once a year. So that was a great piece. And then this last one about green space and parks is really interesting, and I have a slide about it. So I also live in Royal Oak, and I was quite aware of the fact that we have many parks around the city. What I didn't know was this, that 98.2% of our city is within a half mile of a park. So there are only two spots here, these areas marked in yellow. These are the only places in the whole city where you would be more than half a mile away from one of these parks. So anyway, again, there was a lot of data to go through, many departments to work with, but at the end of all of it, it was again enlightening, and it gave a greater understanding of where we are as a city and again some of our gaps. So let's see, LEED for Cities and Communities certification that was told to us in April of 2020 that we actually earned the designation, which was a thrill, of course, after all of that work, but also because we were a couple months into COVID and feeling a little unsure about what was going on. For us in Royal Oak, we have had continuous successes with our sustainability work in 2020. And it started with this great news in April that we have become the LEED certified city. And in this 4.1 version, we are the third city in the country and the first in Michigan to earn it. So that was a very nice certification and award to earn. So the next thing is about what has this LEED for Cities work helped us do in terms of driving additional sustainability action. And so here are a couple things. In July of 2020, we moved forward having a climate emergency acknowledgement resolution passed by the City Commission. When that was passed, it was paired with tasking staff to create the greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which is our first one and acts as a baseline for data-driven decision-making in the future. We were able to finish that greenhouse gas inventory in late September and built a task force to move to the next step, which is to understand what are the carbon reduction goals that we want to have in 2030 and 2050. During this time also, we earned another grant from the state, this time to do an LED retrofit in our courthouse. And then the last piece here is about the commission approving those carbon reduction goals for 2030 and 2050. When that resolution was passed, it was paired with tasking staff again to do, this time, a community-wide sustainability and climate action plan. That plan is due in January 2022, and that is what we're working on right now. So I wanted to just go over this greenhouse gas inventory a little bit, because my last slide is going to talk about some opportunities, but also because I'm kind of geeky and I really love seeing all of this data. So one of the things that really struck me is that commercial electricity makes up about 1/4 of our city's entire emissions. The other thing that was really interesting to me was that the third and fourth sectors here, when you add them together, because they're both residential utilities, that's about 33% of our total emissions come from the residential category. And with, all of this data, especially these top 7, it really gives us a good idea about where we need to focus our efforts in making reductions in the future.
So one question was, what software did you guys use for this information, if you know it? I mean,
I do. Well, actually, it's yes, the software is called ClearPath.
ClearPath.
And and the software is included with the membership in ICLEI, ICLEI, which is Global Sustainability Organization. And when you join as a member, then the software is made available to you, as well as technical assistance, which is, of course, a great help for us because we have such a small sustainability set of staff. So thank you for that question. Yeah, and it's good for cities and counties and townships. So, okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes. So when we were doing the greenhouse gas emissions inventory, one of the things I was considering is trying to understand the municipal operations separately. So we actually did 2 inventories. We did the community-wide, and then we broke out municipal operations. And my intention for doing that was to make sure that we could move forward on municipal operations carbon reductions. It's much easier for us to make decisions about our own buildings, about the street lights that we take care of, etc. And so I thought it would, show a lot of, not only that we're walking our own talk, but, we could make a great deal of difference. And this next slide is something that was shocking to me and to the other staff working on this. Here are the numbers for our municipal operations. Of the total emissions, the city's operations only make up 1.4%. Think of it, 1.4%. So what it did is it made us, start thinking about how do we go back to these very large emitter sectors and figure out how to affect change there. Okay, so this is my quick executive summary and opportunity sheets, and I've mentioned a few of these already on the chart with our emissions, but again, residential energy category is about 33%, commercial energy is about 30%, and commercial electricity by itself is about 25%. So again, with our work with municipal operations, we can't affect that much change relative to carbon emission reductions. We certainly will go forward with energy efficiency in our buildings and our street lights and work toward renewable energy. But the opportunity I see for the construction industry and the architecture industry and the engineering industry, really revolve around the 2 highlighted areas that I have here. there are substantial opportunities in the residential market and the commercial market for help with energy waste reduction. Whether that means efficient remodels, retrofitted upgrades, there are all kinds of opportunities there. So, and I should say Royal Oak, is a smaller city, but there is an indication that many cities fall under the similar kind of breakdown about where the emissions come from. And so that would lead me to believe that there will be substantial opportunities in many of the cities. And given that our county, Oakland County, is moving forward on sustainability also, stay tuned.
This is great. Actually,
Okay.
This is why we wanted to do this from the owner perspective, so other cities and other municipalities actually take this as a role model and try to implement the same in their cities, and also for our AEC community to find opportunities in Royal Oak, knowing that you are looking for these sustainable measures in your city. That was great. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. I'm sure that more questions are going to come up in the discussion section. But before that, we have the architectural perspective. So Laura Long is going to present her screen with us, and we're going to go through her presentation. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we see. If you can make it the full. Okay, great. Okay,
Is that good?
So yes, it looks good. So Laura Long is the studio manager, one of 4 offices for NOR in Detroit, and she is part of the Global Sustainable Committee that is representing U.S. in that company. Since they are operating in 14 different sectors in 4 countries. So it's an honor to have Laura, since she's also the chair of the USGBC Market Leadership Advisory Council of the Detroit region, and she has worked on multiple LEED projects. And we also are colleagues in Lawrence Tech University. So welcome to the program, Laura.
Yeah.
Appreciate it for joining us. And please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. I appreciate it. And thank you very much for doing this webinar on LEED. It's greatly appreciated. And Julie, I just have to say, I never knew that Royal Oak, the boundaries look like a dog. So I'll have to remember that. That made me laugh. So thank you for that. What I'd like to talk to you a little about today is LEED. And in this case, LEED in general, but helping you understand how a little intimidating this whole process can be, but there's a very simple way that you can make this process easier for everyone involved. As project managers, I know that you relate. I'm also a project manager, and I understand the difficulties when you work with a team that may not be as well familiar with LEED. And what do you do about that? So I'm going to go talk about it's been a rough day. I'm going to talk about some things that I'd like to pose to you that would allow you to make the process of LEED much simpler. And it starts from the very beginning. So I'm going to talk about the integrated process, but I'd also like to talk to you at the very end of this presentation about the cost of LEED. We talk about metrics all the time. We talk about data, and people ask, well, it's so much more expensive. Well, is it really? Well, I'm going to actually show you some test results and actual data that proves that it really isn't. So I'll walk you through that. So this is a LEED version 4 checklist. This is for B, D, and C. And from this process, you can either achieve certification through a certified, a silver, gold, or platinum rating. And that depends on, out of this total score, how many points you achieve. And there are several credits that can actually give you quite a number of credits. Energy performance is one of them. But what I'd like to do is actually talk about just one credit. just one credit. And it doesn't even really show up on this checklist. It's right there at the top. It's called the integrated process. And this one credit, if you use the process defined by USGBC in the whole process of LEED, you will solve the majority of the problems you're going to run into in a project when you're under construction or when you're trying to do construction documents. It's going to ensure that everyone included in this process gets a say at the table from day one. So typically, for those of you who are used to the construction process, which I think many of you are, we have the traditional process, which is very linear. But then with the integrated system, it actually becomes more of a holistic bubble. It's a whole systems approach versus that very linear, okay, we're going to go ahead and do design developments, schematic design, construction documents, construction administration, and then it's going to go out and during that process between construction documents and construction administration, it's going to go out for bid. And usually that's when a general contractor, a construction manager comes on board. Well, that's too late. Okay. There's so many decisions that a construction consultant, a manager, a general contractor can actually help in determining what are the most cost-effective ways to achieve LEED certification. So this integrated approach is a very comprehensive method that actually allows project team members to look for synergies. And these team members include the owner, the architect and engineers involved in this, but hopefully depending on the design delivery of the project, right? It could be the actual construction management company and the people involved with that. So we'd like to actually bring in every possible player that we can from day one, well before schematic design, to ensure that everyone's input is involved for the very simple reason that with just 1% of a project's first cost are spent, up to 70% of the life cycle impacts are already determined. And to put that a little bit more simply, at only 1% of the completion mark of a typical project, up to 70% of all design directions have been made. That is a little scary. A lot, someone's actually writing on the screen. It's not me. Can you guys see that? Oh, that's interesting. I think it's just a fascinating concept that all of that money is decided upon in that first 1% of completion of project. When the majority, you think, my gosh, the majority of the work is happening the rest of that 99% of the time. But it's just that very 1% that plays a very crucial part. And that's why the integrated process is so important. It ensures that everyone comes to the table at the very beginning. Everything gets hashed out. All the synergies are discussed and determined as to be what's going to be the most effective way forward with the design and what's the most cost effective. So basically, early involvement by all project partners is critical. That includes, like I mentioned before, the building owner, users, and actually if the staff can be involved, we've done some projects with Detroit Public Schools where we actually had facility staff involved in the design of the mechanical systems, which is unheard of. It was great. But the architects, engineers, the construction team, commissioning authority, and the energy modeler, both of whom these last two items, if you're not familiar with them, commissioning authorities and energy modelers are used very heavily in LEED projects. So this process of research, analysis, and workshops, lots of discussions. This what we call an iterative cycle that refines the design solutions. In the best scenario, the research and workshops continue until the project systems are optimized and all reasonable synergies are identified and related strategies associated with all LEED credits are documented and implemented. Typically, I don't like to read text, but I think that is so crucial. It basically defines what this one credit can do for the entire LEED project moving forward. So this is a really good example of that holistic approach, which the integrated process is. This is an actual kind of a charrette drawing that my company did for a school in Scotland. And basically what this drawing does in a nutshell is it documents daylighting opportunities, how we do geothermal, In this case, the raised plenum with heat coming up from the plenum, the natural ventilation, all which is crucial for the health and well-being of the building's inhabitants. But this, in a nutshell, defines a lot of those systems and synergies that happen at the very beginning of a project. This is why the integrated process is so important. And even though this one credit is optional, you don't have to pursue this. But this one credit can set the tone for the entire LEED project moving forward. I strongly encourage anyone who works on a LEED project to ensure that that integrated process is done. And sometimes it can't. Maybe commissioning authority is brought in too late. The construction manager isn't brought on until the bid process. I mean, there's a whole lot of caveats that can happen in a project, but ensuring that the lead administrator and the architect and engineers working on a project, along with the owner's assistance and guidance, ensures that this integrated process happens from day one, and that will ensure that you have a very successful LEED project. So how does this integrated process affect the return on investment of a LEED project? And I want to actually share with you some information that I gleaned from a presentation we did with USGBC recently. I was a moderator. Daniel Overby is a LEED fellow and a faculty member at Ball State University. And he was kind of tired of people coming up to him and saying, well, it costs so much money, LEED is so expensive. So what he did is he actually got together with Turner, sorry, and this is a shout out to Harold, just had to get you out there, and with actually students from Ball State University, and the company that he actually works for in his day job is Browning Day, and they basically did an analysis of a building in Indiana. And what they found is that the LEED for project costs, for basically if you chose to go after certification as a level, that basically cost 1.36% of the project cost. With silver, it was 2.10, gold, 5.96, and then of course platinum was much more expensive at 14.5%. And what I mean by expensive is that that's just a percentage of the construction cost, which is rather quite high, but there's a return on your investment. So for a LEED version 4 certified and silver project, the simple payback is under 5 years. So that cost of doing a LEED building, you can get a return on your investment in under 5 years, which is unbelievable. With gold, the return on your investment is 11.2 years. And with platinum, of course, it's over 20 years. So in addition to one of the many things that you can do, and one of the benefits of using the LEED process is that you can significantly reduce the global warming potential of your project, okay? And in particular for this particular project, Indianapolis wanted to achieve a net zero greenhouse emissions by 2050, and buildings account for 66% of Indy's community-wide greenhouse gas emissions. So basically, by doing these LEED projects, you can reduce, what are the odds? Your potential reduction in embodied carbon, which is something we're all focusing on now, by 14.3%. And you can reduce your operational carbon, potential reduction in operational carbon. Again, it all depends on how the building is run after it becomes certified. You can reduce it by 23.5%. So what's really interesting is one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with as architects and engineers and anyone who deals with the built environment are codes. And we can only work as fast as the codes dictate. And one of the things I would just like to point out with this slide, which I thought was very interesting, excuse me, I just want to get some water. Through Daniel's research, the biggest obstacle to him was building codes and standards. You know, over time, LEED and the standard it references become more stringent, looking for greater improvements over time. But however, if codes and regulations remain stagnant, then the differential between code minimum and what certification calls for becomes even greater. So right now, as you can see from this chart, we've got LEED that's basically using, and this is, I'm referencing version 4.1 on this. The standard is ASHRAE 90.1, 2016. And as you can see, when the study was done, Indiana actually was referencing 90.1 2007. Quite a difference between those two standards. So, following the LEED process, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to be well beyond code, which LEED always is. But it really impacts a building, whether you pursue LEED or not, as to what codes the jurisdiction is following. So I just want to stress here in my presentation that there are a lot of ways to achieve LEED, and the most holistic way to improve a building's performance is using the integrated process. While there may be extra fees and those first-time costs associated with LEED, when it becomes LEED certified, there are many benefits, including financial ones, which is documented. Those return on investments are pretty impressive. Of getting your building certified, it is worth it. And of course, you have always reduced energy usage, reduce carbon emissions, reduce water usage as well. So what I'd like to just leave you with is it's always wise when you're working on a LEED project to ensure that you have someone who is skilled and can speak for the need of the integrated process. It's crucial to ensure that your buildings are the most efficiently designed. And as someone who's worked on many LEED projects over my lifetime as an architect, with Canada's Green Building Council, as well as USGBC's standard, it all depends on who you work with. And having a construction manager, a project manager who's involved, who knows LEED and has LEED experience, will be the most effective project. And ensuring that that integrated process is followed, whether or not you even go after the credit. You can do all the front work and not go after that one credit. But if you follow the guidelines that are in USGBC's LEED manual, you'll see how effective this can be for you in the long run and improve the overall performance of your building and ensure that those first costs are achieved at a lower rate. And then that return on investment, which is a life cycle cost that Patrick was talking about in his presentation, will be seen and much more easily so. So the fact that you can get a certified building and a silver building with a return on your investment in 5 years is proof that LEED can be a successful and cost-effective way to make a green building.
That's great. Actually, that's the reason we are doing the June event, is that the IPD, or integrated project delivery, is not easy. It requires great people that understand integration and working together in a team. And I'm glad that you brought that point up with the LEED certification, is that unless you have a great team that works together in an IPD fashion, you're not going to be successful. And that's one of the reasons why it's only one credit, is because it's like a given. It's like you got to have it to be successful in that. That was great. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate your time and your presentation, and I'm sure everybody has benefited from that. Next, we're going to have Harold Wilcox. Harold, can you share your screen? Thank you. So Harold is from Turner Construction, and he's a local Detroit native, and he also does a lot of advocacy for community service. He's part of the Michigan Sustainability Manager and SPD Project Manager for Turner Construction. He's currently pursuing his MBA at Wayne State University. He's part of the USGBC Detroit region, serving as the lead for ND committees. And without further ado, here's Harold and his presentation.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me clear? Yes, thank you. Thanks for Dr. Amari for having me as a panelist today. I am happy to have this conversation about PMP and LEED, and how those two processes can contribute towards successful project integration and implementation. So today, in my presentation, I'm going to talk about the LEED process and some of the PMP principles and how they tie into construction projects from a general contractor perspective. Okay, so I would like to start by just, sharing a vision statement, and this is Turner's vision statement for sustainability. Going into, finding about a LEED project, you have to have like a structure, which is mentioned throughout the presentation today as a part of, what are the successful things that contribute towards a LEED project. So environmental efficiency is one of them. You have to have guidelines on, how your construction projects are going to operate. And, that's really key in regards to utilities. Resiliency is another key to also consider as a general contractor working on a potential LEED project. How can, you bring resilient expertise in construction management that can help towards, evaluating decisions that impact design or cost or quality in regards to a specific LEED project. And then also green building. USGBC is all about the built environment and, implementing environmental goals on every project. So, that's one of the best practices that, throughout Turner's LEED projects that contribute towards the success of, completing a successful LEED project over and over. The triple bottom line really is engraved in the process and the approach of how to successfully plan and execute a LEED project. Patrick mentioned this earlier in his presentation. This is really embedded into the integrative process and should be, considered in, all of the different aspects of, planning and implementing. What is project management? Project management, really just going over the fundamentals is knowledge, skills, tools, techniques that it's going to take, maybe from a general contractor in order to, complete the, engineering and the building and the testing and management of that specific project. With the project management approach, they have it broken out into different categories like initiation, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closeout. Those procedures from a PMP standpoint help facilitate milestones for any type of project, not necessarily LEED, but however, in this case, for the purpose of this presentation, with LEED, a lot of these similar milestones are outlined in the integrative process. And, one of the parallel opportunities here by having a PMP professional facilitate a LEED project or engaging, learning PMP principles and encouraging maybe a project manager to pursue a PMP certification can also help, increase the success factor of this potential LEED project. The contractor's role, really, I know this is a long list of stuff, but really, it's really a structured list of stuff. So it's broken down similar to the, primary phases of the PMP process, which is, like in the design phase, early in the stages when you developing a project charter and, the design team starts to bring on those stakeholders. It's really important to also, from the owner and the architect and engineer perspective in the design phase to consider, hey, maybe we should bring a general contractor on board because, we can help with the feasibility and discussing the execution, discussing, what risks are out there as it relates to a client potential goals and the LEED certification, referencing, if they want to do a platinum or a gold or silver certification. So just going down a few key items during the design phase, the design team need to, establish kind of key things like how much of it is going to be reused, how much, but square foot of a project is going to be preserved. Constructability reviews, setting up the integrative design process, identifying sustainable materials. An example of sustainable materials might be if the job going to be 100% green board or not, for shaft liner and regular gypsum board, or if it's going to be 100% LED lights and light fixtures that might not have ballast to reduce carbon emissions. Like a lot of those designs, it's good to have a general contractor on board at that time so that you can kind of consider those different things. And those different things also help contribute towards pre-construction and value engineering input. So anytime you can, identify qualified, competent contractors that you might have a LEED project for, it's always good to maybe, once you have a short list of contractors that make the qualified bid, to do a scope review and see, which contractor has the best qualifications to help implement the vision of a potential LEED project. Pre-construction, really it just continues on with the project management life cycle to further develop the scope, and then come to an agreement where you feel pretty confident with the design and the intents of the design and the sustainability goals. So in pre-construction, you develop things like the finalization of submittals. And then that's once you get submittals, you really start bringing on, all of the additional lead team, like the commissioning agent and the project management team and the sustainability manager specifically for that team. Let's see. Next slide, continuing the contractor's role, startup and mobilization. The LEED plan has to be developed. Materials and resources got to be finalized, submittals approved. You got to have a stormwater waste management plan, all of the fundamentals, construction waste management plan, identify municipality diversion plan, indoor air quality. You got to have the works. And, one of the key things that was reiterated throughout this presentation is that it can be a lot. And the project team has to be a unique project team with people that have experience in, doing building of projects, but you also could and should have a champion such as a LEED certified professional as well as a PMP certified professional that could help spear, the project from the start to the finish line. So during construction, you got a lot of different things that the general contractor is responsible for doing, such as establishing goals, metrics, meetings, coordination with all of the different owners and vendors, architects, engineers, commissioning agents, and really everything that you implemented at construction for LEED is at the point where it's being, kicked off and started. So, after you finish building it and, you get it tested out, you go to close out, where really that's when you're doing all the final commissioning and reconciling all of the different submittals and closing out any open loose ends. But also through each of these processes, at least with Turner, we have a significant, review process to where we constantly evaluate, okay, where are we at? At the end of initiation phase, did we meet all our checklists for our LEED project? At design phase, did we ask all of the questions and, try to engage and encourage any value engineering that might have, been cost effective or a better quality for the owner or a more sustainable product? It's also good as a general contractor, if the spec book doesn't necessarily lay out a specific material that has, a green guard stamp, and one that can be a better source, it's definitely good to recommend that before construction. The life cycle, just kind of giving another summary of that, it's the concept initiation phase, the organizational planning phase, operational execution, and monitoring and controlling. So in each of these phases, it's really key to kind of have a structured system. Now, although everyone may not have experience with the project management approach, and this may be new to some owners or contractors that might be interested even in attendance at this meeting, one of the unique things about the PMP approach is that, most projects go through similar phases, and, there can be numerous phases depending on, the magnitude of the project. And then, you really just take it one phase at a time. 4 dimensions for project success using the PMP model would be project efficiency, the impact that you have for your customers, the business impact on the organization, and new opportunities for the future. The strategic management process is a process that reflects on the corporate objectives. Now, with the corporate objectives, all of those are identified by the stakeholders. And, the strategic planning is a part of what helps identify commitments and also identify risk. So you have a good chance to minimize risk by having a strategic management plan embedded in the LEED goals and objectives for a project. One of the PMP tools that, Turner uses that applies well to a lot of projects is the SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And this is also in parallel to identifying the type of rigor of a project. When I say rigor, meaning like, a low rigor project might have different variables of safety, cost, quality, schedule, and customer satisfaction, which are some of the key things that you constantly evaluate in the PMP process and in the LEED process throughout a life cycle of a construction project. Metrics, we talked about metrics briefly. Really, metrics help you identify your performance on a LEED project. So, in a project schedule, in the weekly or biweekly stakeholder meetings, these are the things that you really want to discuss and evaluate, even if they are in good terms or in good standings as far as performance or integration. You can really just, take those and monitor them. Critical path schedule, at the beginning of a project, you should have a critical path and also be able to identify through all of the different major phases, what goals and objectives for the LEED project should be achieved. What is a system? A system is basically just each phase of the project. So, you got the management process where you design and you manage and you coordinate and you take those raw materials and the manufacturing and the finished products and you install them. So through all of those, you should have kind of like a lead QA/QC person on site, and it could be a designated field staff or engineer that can kind of carry a checklist that, through each of these processes or milestones of a project that you are in good standings, and you carry, the integrative process along with you through each of these phases of the different systems in construction or operations. So resilience, really it's the human focus. You got to consider these things as the builder of the LEED project. You got to consider worker health and safety. Coming out of a COVID-19 pandemic, we all just kind of saw how different social or economic impacts can come in and change things. A perfect example that a lot of general contractors might have faced is the ability to achieve waste diversion goals. When COVID-19 hit and 6 feet minimum distance was required, a lot of the waste recycling facilities or waste sorting facilities might have encountered abnormal circumstances to where they can't recycle as efficient as they could, because you have a lot of people that have to be in 6 feet, and now you can't really execute a efficient sorting, waste diverting method as you could in a normal setting. Am I still good on time, Dr. Amari? I'm almost.
Well, yeah, I think the time is up, but if you can wrap it up a little bit, and then we can go to Bob for his last presentation, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So, I'll try to wrap it up here. Just a few things that the contractor is considerate of, job site electricity use. These are ways that you can help, increase efficiency and reduce, unnecessary electrical use on equipment, contributes towards reducing carbon emissions on a job site. It's a lot of opportunities to do that with LED lights, net zero trailers, hybrid cranes, battery storage, solar charging equipment. Job site water use. It's good to, use fresh water on a job site, and also have different things to, make sure you don't waste water on the job site outside of, construction operations. Job site fuel, one of the most common things, you use a lot of equipment, but some of the opportunities with that is, a lot of idling. Once again, one of the common goals, if we can, is to reduce carbon emissions. And, just going towards wrapping it up, just a few projects that Turner completed here in the local Detroit area is the CHAS Medical Building Community Health and Service. It was LEED certified. The PMP process definitely helped with that project. At the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, we can kind of talk about these projects a little bit more, but I'll just kind of go through them. I brought up the scorecard just to kind of maybe talk about some of the, categories where, performance excelled, and some of the areas where there were opportunities for improvement. So I did have a few projects. The Detroit Public Safety Headquarters was another one, LEED Gold project. Just one key fact I'll point out about that is that, very unique project. Since it's a government building, public safety building, you don't just have the owner being, the Detroit Public Safety Department, but you also got certain integration of engineering and management, like Army Corps engineer requirements, in addition to just regular construction coordination. So unique projects come with unique, opportunities and circumstances. So these were just a few projects that, I wanted to kind of highlight, including Munger up preschool through 8, another LEED Silver project where, the project management approach helped carry it through certification. And, it was a big turnout, and the school still is pretty active and still sustainable. So here, just wrapping it up, LEED management approach, PMP management approach, step 1 through 6 is really just an example, is that, you should carry both of those hand to hand. And if you do that, you will have a good chance to be a success on your project. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Harold. It was great. Thank you for all the information you shared with us. And I'm sure that you've spent a lot of time preparing for that presentation. I wish we had a little bit more time to discuss those specific projects. Hopefully in future programs, we'll invite you again and discuss those in more detail. I don't see a lot of questions that are raising a discussion or any issues that we need to have as a discussion panel. So I'd like to have Bob present his presentation in full extent. Just don't rush it into the the 10-minute time. If you can do it in 15 minutes, I think we should be okay with the time and finish the program by 6:30 if there's no other questions or concerns. Now, I know Bob had a video that he wanted me to share, so let me try to see if I can share my screen.
Dr. Amari?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we've got it embedded, so we're all set to go.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so you want to share your screen?
Definitely can do that. I just wanted to thank you too for all your assistance in getting this together.
Thank you.
I know there's a lot of work involved, so the presenters and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, now we can see it.
Are you sure?
That's the last one, though.
It's the last one?
Just like I told you. All right, let me get to the front.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. Why is it not in this view?
Can you scroll up?
Hold on.
You could have just shared it. Yeah, if you shared the same. Yeah, just went over the first slide, we should have been fine.
Let's see if it works.
Okay, thank you.
Now we see it. Yes.
Great. Go ahead. I don't know if you want to introduce me. You want to introduce
myself?
myself?
Sure. Yeah, you can introduce yourself. Go ahead. I think you can do a better job of introducing yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Matler, commercial real estate attorney and broker by trade. Last 10 years, the green light went on and obtained my LEED certification with the LEED AP, B, D, and C, and was very involved with USGBC on their board for many years, and have since been involved with the Green Task Force, the City of Detroit, and also been involved with Detroit 2030 District. My passion, obviously, is helping building owners and developers finance all these great projects. So obviously, we've had a lot of great presentations on LEED and projects and all the things that go into it, but we've got to have the capital. We need the green financing to make this happen. And PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. We're bringing the green financing to the table. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to do a 3-minute presentation, Dr. Amari, and then we're going to have some slides. We'll finish off with some case studies. And I'm going to try and do this in 10 minutes or less because I've practiced. And I know that you wanted me to keep it brief.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So here's the 3-minute video.
Thanks.
10 years ago, we created PACE Financing to give homeowners an innovative and affordable way to make their homes more efficient, more comfortable, and more secure. Today, PACE is available to business owners and homeowners in thousands of communities all across the country.
PACE has taken off across America because it's building bridges between consumers, lenders, American businesses, and state and local governments.
PACE is simply a voluntary way of financing energy efficiency improvements for those individuals and businesses that want to become more energy efficient but lack the upfront capital to make those improvements right away.
Commercial PACE has helped over 1,000 building owners across the country access capital to upgrade their facilities. As an industry, we've mobilized more than $540 million, making schools, nonprofits, offices, and manufacturers safer and more efficient.
We've got commercial PACE programs operating in 20 states plus DC, residential programs in 3 states, and we're adding more programs all the time.
PACE is the type of policy that can help revitalize the American economy. PACE financing creates jobs, saves energy, decreases pollution, and reduces costs for homeowners and businesses.
We've created 42,000 American jobs and financed nearly $5 billion in projects.
We've helped fuel the energy revolution that's enabling people to produce their own clean energy. Solar really pays off for homeowners and commercial properties. PACE makes it easier for them to put solar panels on their roof so they can start saving now.
The PACE industry has earned the trust of 180,000 homeowners, giving them the power to conserve energy, to save water, and to live more comfortably.
More than 2 million Americans go to work every day manufacturing, selling, and installing products that deliver energy efficiency. We're providing good-paying jobs, manufacturing top-quality products, and most importantly, they're made in the USA.
PACE has helped us grow our business and employ more people, so I think that's a win-win for everybody.
PACE financing is an innovative way for our aging population to control their energy costs while on a fixed income.
When it's 10 degrees outside in the middle of winter and your furnace goes out, you need to get it fixed right now. It's an emergency for that family. That's why we do this. That's what PACE is for.
PACE is for the homeowner in Modesto who wants to run a more efficient AC without having to worry too much about their bills.
PACE is for the insulation manufacturer and contractor in Georgia who wants to grow and hire more people.
PACE is for the farmer from Durango who wants to make an upgrade.
PACE is for the Florida homeowner who needs storm windows and doors for their peace of mind.
PACE is for the local manufacturer in Bethel, Connecticut, who is looking to cut his energy costs so he could stay competitive.
PACE is an American innovation, and the best is yet to come.
Great. So that's a couple-year-old video that I wanted to show that gives a little bit of a 360-degree overview of PACE. PACE is basically nothing more than a state law, and PACE again stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. We've had it here in Michigan for about 10 years, and PACE is a state law that I said for helping building owners and developers incorporate more sustainable building systems into their projects. Developers are also using PACE to lower their cost of capital. Why PACE? I think we've kind of gone over this. Property Assessed Clean Energy provides the financing to do those LEED projects so we can save energy, save water, put in renewables, and PACE is just the means enabled to do so. And I should say the PACE is now in 37 states, active in 25, and the PACE residential program is in 4 states, California, Missouri, Ohio, and Florida. PACE is great because it reduces operating costs, increases the building value, and it creates healthier, safer, more comfortable buildings. Again, no different than what we're trying to do with LEED projects and LEED buildings, and this is the green financing to pay for it all. Some more PACE benefits include 100% financing of both the hard and soft costs. So if you have some demo, or you've got engineering or architectural fees, those can also be included so the owner doesn't have to come out of pocket. PACE is basically based on the term of what we're putting into the building. So if you've got a 25-year roof, we can do a 25-year term. If we have multiple projects, we take an average, but our state law allows up to 25 years of payback for the PACE financing. And most importantly, in my mind on this slide, is that there is no owner guarantee. One proviso is if you've got a new project, there might be an owner guarantee during construction, but it melts away after the project is done. And that's really key, especially for nonprofits, because you don't want a nonprofit board to have personal liability. And PACE avoids all of that messiness, let's say, by not having owner guarantees for this type of financing. So what kind of assets are involved with PACE financing? In a nutshell, all of them. The only projects that we can't do in Michigan, as I already mentioned, are residential projects. So anything of 4 units or less is not a PACE viable project. And because PACE is a property tax assessment, government buildings are not allowed to use PACE. However, the reversal, we have a case study of this. We had a state agency here in Michigan that was leasing a building from an owner, and that was perfectly fine because the owner was a private individual. The government was able to obtain less energy and water use and use the PACE financing for their needs because it was a triple net lease, so they were paying all those expenses. But in parentheses, you see the names of all the different projects that have been done in Michigan on all these different asset classes. The only one that we don't have right now is agricultural. So if somebody knows Blake's Cider Mill or a nice wine vineyard up north, I'd love to have a crack at that. But yeah, PACE is great for nonprofits, senior centers, multifamily, hospitality, hospitals. It's pretty much a very broad tool to bring the financing for either upgrading that building or developing it. So we talked about some of the other qualifiers. PACE can be used for new development. And again, we did that at 830 Henry in Ann Arbor, a multifamily $10 million project where we brought about $2.3 million of PACE financing. It can be used for redevelopment, infrastructure replacement. We did that at Detroit Unity Church when they needed a new roof. They needed windows. They needed LED lighting and some other building tucking. Anything that relates to energy or water is a viable PACE project. So we were able to shore up the drafts in that building and make it more comfortable and more visible to the members. Most importantly is this fourth bullet point, which hardly anybody is aware of, but our statute allows for you to refinance with PACE. So if you're a building owner and you put out your hard-earned money to do a boiler, roof, windows, LED lighting 2 years ago, you can now come back and refinance that project, pull out all that equity to pay for more important needs in a boiler, chiller, or a roof. And we've got a case study that we've already done a couple of those. PACE qualified infrastructure, there's really three buckets. One is energy efficiency. And I explain again, anything inside or outside the building that touches on your energy is a PACE viable project. So if you think about multifamily appliances, because those stay with the building owner, that's a PACE project as long as it's above code. And that goes for all this. It has to be above building code. As far as outside, if you want to do your parking lights or you want to do a garden, a green garden in your impermeable space, you can do that with PACE financing. Same thing with water efficiency. Basically, anything touching water inside or outside the building, where we can show that we're above building code is a viable project. And then all renewables are PACE viable projects, including EV charging stations, PV, solar, wind, etc. Now, we're in Michigan are lucky. We have two different types of programs here. We have PACE Express. That's for the building owner that has a smaller type project. Could be 100,000, 125,000. The basement, the floor is usually 100,000, 125,000. And the PACE Express project goes up to $250,000 of improvements. And that can be, again, for any of the things we talked about, energy, water, or renewable. And it's a little bit easier, quicker, and less burdensome to the owner because there's a lot less paperwork. From $250,000 and up, and there is no ceiling, there's been PACE projects across the country, 60, 70, $100 million. So there is no ceiling on a PACE project. But PACE here in Michigan starts at $250,000 and up. And there we have a little bit more requirements. We need an ASHRAE level 2 energy. We need the savings to investment ratio to be greater than 1. In other words, over those 25 years, we have to pencil out that the owner is going to save more on this project in energy and water saved than they're going to spend for that period of time. The stakeholders in a PACE project, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. I'm showing 3, but here in Michigan, there's really 4. We have the property owner that has the building or the developer. We have the PACE capital provider bringing the green financing to the project or the development. We have the locality where the property is. So it can be a city. A city can opt into PACE or a county can opt into PACE. So we have the locality where it's going to be on the tax rolls because it is a first property tax lien. And then we also have Lean and Green Michigan, our PACE administrator, which I have a slide on coming. Here's our Michigan PACE market, and this is a little bit dated. I think we've had some growth since then, since this slide was put out by Lean and Green Michigan, but we've got over 71% of the state's population now in PACE-enabled cities and counties, and we also are having more every month. And it's a fairly easy process for a city or county to opt in. It's usually started by a developer or building owner who wants to use this great financing tool. They go to the economic development department, and then the city starts getting involved with Lean and Green. But it literally can be 30 days, 2 resolutions and a hearing at the city or county level. Of course, it can also be Grand Rapids, which took 5 years. So, take your money and pay your choice. I talked about our PACE administrator, Lean and Green. Some states have several. We only have one. They started it back in 2010, 2011. Andy Levin, who's now a congressman, is the one that started this. And they basically are coordinating the PACE market. They're ensuring compliance with the law, and they are basically the go-to resource for all things PACE. And I wanted to show you real quickly their website. If you go to their website, which is basically just leanandgreenmi.com, I'm happy to share this with anybody, and you click on resources, market data, you can see all the projects that have been done in Michigan, and this is only over the last 3 or 4 years. So PACE took a long time to get going. A lot of it had to do with our depression or recession, whatever you want to call it, in the early 2010s. And since 2016, it's been coming on more and more. But if you look at all the money that the owners were saving, over $163 million from these projects, and we've only done 38 projects. So, I mean, in my estimation, we've only scratched the surface with PACE, but over $81 million in PACE projects. But you can see the kilowatts saved, the CO2 savings, the gallons of water, 250 million gallons of water saved with these projects. And then below that, we also have the jurisdictions. Wayne County's leading in Michigan, with St. Clair not too far behind, and then the cost of the financing in each county. So that's pretty much Lean and Green, and it's a great resource to go to that website. And I'm going to finish out with 3 or 4 slides on some projects. And I was surprised. I was able to find PACE projects that are also LEED buildings. So the LEED community is starting to realize that, hey, why don't we get involved in trying to get this cheaper financing for buildings with nothing up front, non-recourse money. Again, it's pretty equitable, pretty reasonable type of financing for both the building owner and the developer who want to use this type of financing. But this is called Citizen M. It's a really, it's from Europe, this hotel company, and it's really a cool building. This is the one in Seattle because you can see the Seattle sky in back. But they're building one in LA with PACE financing, which is pretty new and interesting. And I think it's a $15 million project with $4 or $5 million of PACE. Wrong way. This is a building that's really cool. This was the DC United Audi Field in Washington, DC, state-of-the-art green stadium. They went LEED Gold, and out of $300 million, $25 million of it was PACE financing. So instead of bringing in more expensive mezzanine finance or partners, private equity, you go with PACE financing. It's between 5 and 6% right now. If you go to the mezzanine or private equity, it's more than double that, and a lot more covenants, a lot more restrictions. What's cool about PACE is you can refinance with it and you can sell with it still on your property. It's nothing different than a sewer assessment or a sidewalk assessment. Just like you as a private owner has a sidewalk assessment, if they improved your sidewalks, you can sell that house to the next owner. He just picks up that assessment and keeps paying of it until it's paid off. This is a very cool PACE project. I should say LEED project that used PACE because we're all talking about LEED, but they use PACE financing for it. And my notes say that they used about $20 million of PACE financing. What I wanted you to know is in California, you can use PACE for seismic measures, improving your building for earthquake prevention. And that's unique in California. In Florida, you can do that for hurricane proofing your home or your commercial building. And this is the last slide I have, $7 million of energy efficiency projects. Fiddler's Green is a project in Greenwood Village, Colorado. Colorado is really big on PACE. They do a lot of cool projects. This is a pursuing LEED certification, replacing water fixtures, installing next generation tenant spaces, and obviously you can do active energy management programs. PACE, again, is for anything that's energy, water, or renewable related in your building. And I didn't keep to my 10-minute thing, but Harry gave me a little bit of leeway, so I appreciate that,
okay.
Dr. Amari. Very much appreciate bringing the group home.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, Bob. And thank you, everyone, all the panelists and all our audience for taking part in this presentation. And as I said, I mean, the questions that we had weren't so much of bringing a discussion up, except I think the last question that was asked from Julie, I don't know, Julie was trying to respond to it. Do you have a respond to that, Julie? Do you work with PACE in Royal Oak, or have you seen it before?
I'm typing the response right now, but I'd be happy to say it also. So Royal Oak has been qualified to do PACE projects since about 2014 or 2015 is my understanding. But we haven't had one PACE project occur yet. And this just came up a few weeks ago, again, because of all of the work that we're doing and recognizing the commercial opportunities and the industrial opportunities. So we talked with one of the commissioners, and she is very excited to help us move this forward and get the word out. So I think the answer right now is no, but coming up, the answer will be yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Great opportunities there. It's time for everybody to turn on their cams and mics if they want to ask any certain questions or just show their faces and say hi to our panelists. So this is the time that we usually allow for everybody to kind of jump on the Zoom call if they wish to kind of participate in the meeting. But it was very good meeting for me. I mean, I know that we've been working on this thing since last November or December in the education committee of USGBC, and everybody did a great job of bringing all these different topics and aspects of the LEED project. So we pretty much did most of our discussions before that ended up to be this meeting where we did our presentation. So that's why you don't see us arguing or discussing different aspects of LEED, because we already made those discussions and came to this conclusion to say, these are the topics that we're going to cover. These are the main ideas that we wish to present in this meeting to inform whoever is interested in the topic of LEED for the AEC, the architect, engineering, and construction industry. So I'd like to thank all of you guys. If there's any final notes or comments, Lana, did you have something to say at the end of this program?
Yeah, just thank you to all the presenters. I think it was a lot of great information. Hopefully you will walk away knowing that we have tools and resources to help you with your sustainability goals. So just reach out, let us know how we can help you with your efforts. And I think we all have the same goal. We all want a better future. We all want, a healthy future. So we're just happy to work together with you. And again, great. Harry, thank you so much to you and PMI for organizing this and giving us the opportunity to share the information.
And the great thing about our programs is that we record them and we cut it in pieces so you can share it with your audience and your own network, and people can come back to these topics. I know we covered a lot of different topics and subjects and informative information that we really need some time to digest. So I'm sure that people are going to go back to it and kind of reference to these videos and clips in future. And as I mentioned, it's being broadcast live at the same time. So some of our audience were online and they were following us online. But hopefully this is the start of future discussions. And if you have other discussions in other parts, just let us know and then we'll communicate it with our audience as well. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry, for putting this together. It's been my pleasure participating. Thanks to the other participants as well.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Great job, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah.